First, Boston Celtics win the 2024 NBA Finals in 5 games. They win Game 5 in dominant fashion over Dallas. Yes, I did pick the Dallas Mavericks to win the series. And yes, I did say that while I gave the Celtics a 90% chance to win Game 5, I thought that was their best opportunity to go in and get this thing over with, get this title, get banner number 18 hanging in the rafters. I simultaneously held the thought that if Dallas won that game, momentum totally shifts. Dallas wins Game 6 and Game 7. God knows the pressure that's on the Celtics at that point. But the Celtics did what they were supposed to do, took care of business in a Game 5 in Boston against the Mavericks. 106-88 was the final score in that game. But again, Jason Tatum drops 31, 11, and 8, almost a triple-double. Jaylen Brown drops 21. More on sort of the why I think Brown was deserving of winning Finals MVP later in the show. I want to talk about Boston, though, as in terms of their organizational makeup and why they won the 2024 NBA championship. Because to me, they exposed 2 truths that I believe in to my core. And they did the right things to sort of expose both truths to be truths. The first one is aggressive wins in sports. It just does. Now, sometimes aggressive doesn't win, but you got a better chance to be successful and you're taking big swings to get to where you want to be if you're, as opposed to standing pat, staying comfortable, not putting yourself out there. And Toronto Raptors wouldn't be champions if not for a big swing getting Kawhi Leonard. Los Angeles Lakers wouldn't be champions had they not went out and gotten Anthony Davis. So we've seen this time and time again throughout NBA history. Boston made a lot of moves that could be considered, at least at the time, that's an interesting move, a little risky move, or maybe I like that one. Or they got Al Horford in 2021. They got Al Horford in 2021, brought him back to Boston from in a trade with Oklahoma City. Before that, Brad Stevens said, you know what, this coaching thing, I'm really good at it, but at the same time, I just don't feel like my voice and my message is connecting with the locker room. So I'm going to go with the front office. I'm a smart guy. I can put a team together. First move, get Al Horford. Okay, so the Celtics put that piece together. Later on that season, in a year that the Celtics ended up going to the NBA Finals, midway through, they get Derek White in a trade with the San Antonio Spurs. Yes, draft capital has been valuable to the Boston Celtics over the years. It's how they got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade. But they said Derek White can help us get to an NBA Finals and win one. Well, help them get to one in 2022. So what did Boston do beyond that? They said, okay, we're going to go out and get Malcolm Brogdon. Big swing that really didn't work out that well. Brogdon's a good player. I've always been a fan of Malcolm Brogdon, but it just didn't materialize the way the Boston Celtics had hoped. So what did they do? They go on to be the second best team in the Eastern Conference, second best team record-wise in the NBA. They're down 3-0 to the Miami Heat, come back to go to a Game 7. Tatum turns his ankle seconds in. They get blown out at home and miss out on a golden opportunity to potentially win a championship last year. And the Celtics had a decision to make at that point. Okay. We've gone to a ton of a conference finals since 2017. I believe 5 to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. 17, 18, 20, and 22, 23. Yep, that's 5 NBA conference finals in the last 5 years. And NBA finals in that stretch as well, where they lost to my Warriors. We're good, clearly. Jason Tatum's excellent. First team All-NBA guy. Jaylen Brown, who should have been All-NBA this year, by the way. Excellent all-star level player and a good overall squad around us. Not enough. Marcus Smart, I'm a firm believer in this. The Boston Celtics, as it pertains to the overall process in getting to this point, are not champions unless Marcus Smart is a part of that franchise for years. He helped set the foundation and build the culture into what it is now. He was one of the foundational pieces and a valuable player to that team. They said, we've tried it with Marcus Smart, and it's got a cap on it. Shoots too much, is a very good defender, not as great as some tried to make him out to be. We're going to move him for a guy who played 51 games last year. I think it was 51 games last year, and Kristaps Porzingis. It's gutsy. Very gutsy. I was a guy back then in the tram, like, I like it. He gives them a higher ceiling than Smart gives them, but man, this is risky. His injury history, can he hold up? How's this going to work? And as it turned out, he ended up getting hurt at the end of the season. Now he was able to come back in Game 5 and give the Celtics what he could give them, but he's probably going to have surgery this offseason. But it was a big swing. Ended up working out pretty well. Later on, right before the season, the Bucks made the trade of the NBA offseason, trading for Damian Lillard. And at that point, I'm of the mindset, man, Bucks, they're in the catbird seat to win the Eastern Conference and potentially win the NBA Finals. And so what do the Bucks do? They trade Drew Holiday to the Portland Trail Blazers. So the Celtics say, okay, Portland's tanking. Drew's going to end up on a contender. Malcolm Brogdon took a big swing, didn't work. Okay, move off it. Move on to go get Drew Holiday, who, when he was traded year one to the Milwaukee Bucks, all he did was be the second best player on a championship-winning team and help Giannis and the Bucks win their first title in a half century. Let's go get that guy. Best defender in the NBA, under 6'5", can lock up some of the better guards in the conference. Should we run into a Jalen Brunson? Should we run into a Tyrese Halliburton or a Damian Lillard, depending on who the Celtics would run into in a 7-game series? Oh, and by the way, any given night, he can give us 20. Big swings all paying off because they took them. Because they have a smart guy in Brad Stevens running the organization, and they also did something too. You're like, okay, Bryson, that's the first truth. What's the second truth of the Boston Celtics in winning the 2024 title? What did they expose? What did they show? Not just the NBA world, but the sports world, at least the team sports world. Aggressive wins in sports, yes. But there's a fine line. We hear this word all the time in many different contexts in professional sports. Loyalty, right? Hear that all the time. Loyalty is a good thing, I believe, as long as you're loyal to the right things. And for years, I was not in this camp, unless 2 years ago it meant getting Kevin Durant, obviously. Get a guy that caliber, you do what you got to do to get him. The Boston Celtics said, you know what, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, we feel like we can win with these guys. We are going to stand pat. We've seen what they're capable of. They're all-star level players. We feel we can get to the top if we put the requisite pieces around them. And look where they are today. NBA champions. Jaylen Brown's MVP. Jason Tatum, 3-time back-to-back first-team All-NBA, and led the team in scoring, rebounding, and assists in the NBA Finals. We'll assess Tatum's overall performance and Brown's overall performance later in the show. But the Boston Celtics were loyal to the right things. They weren't loyal to Marcus Smart when it was all said and done. They weren't loyal to Al Horford, and then they were loyal to Al Horford. They weren't loyal to guys like a Terry Rozier, for example. They weren't loyal to guys who were good, just couldn't get us right over the top the way that a Porzingis and a Drew Holiday and a Derek White could with our two superstar players. Or in the case of Tatum, I believe him to be a superstar. Brown is no question, bare minimum, a star. And if you look at the Boston Celtics, yes, the number of moves, which really, if you want to be technical about it, started way back in 2013 with the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade to the Brooklyn Nets, in which they got the 3rd overall pick, drafted Jaylen Brown in 2016, and with the 3rd pick in 2017, drafted Jason Tatum, their 1-2 duo, 1-2 punch. But they were loyal to the right things. And they were aggressive, which wins in team sports. That's why they're champions today. Yes, they went on a dominant postseason run and deserve massive credit for that. And I'll talk about sort of their run later in the show, sort of contextualize it to the best of my ability. But they were aggressive and they were loyal to the right things. You can be, there's nothing wrong with being the Los Angeles Lakers and being loyal to Austin Reeves. Good player, but probably wouldn't start in the Boston Celtics if we're being honest. Given that makeup, I'd take Derek White over Austin Reeves any day of the week, with all due respect to Austin Reeves. There's nothing wrong. This is why I'm kind of cautioning my Warriors on being right now. There's nothing wrong with being loyal to Klay Thompson, especially after what he's given you over the last decade. But he can't really help you win right now at a certain price. If the price isn't right, you probably got to let Klay go. As much as that hurts me as a Warriors fan to say, you probably got to let him go. Loyal to the right things while simultaneously being aggressive. Those two things can work in sequence, in conjunction with one another. But you can't be too loyal. Otherwise, you'll be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love my Steelers, but they've been too loyal at points, to a fault. And you have to also be aggressive. And that's what the Boston Celtics were. That's why they're NBA champions. That's why they're the favorites to go back-to-back next year. I don't know if they will. I'm not going to predict the NBA Finals in 2025 till October. That's what my job is to do on the show. But in the here and now, This is the best team start to finish. I was wrong in this finals. I picked Dallas. I thought Dallas, and still think Dallas has the best player in the series in Luka Doncic. I still do believe I don't think it's a question. He's better than Tatum and Brown, with all due respect to those two NBA champions. But I thought the run to get to the finals certainly, I think, was inarguably more impressive in terms of the opponents they went through. I thought there were matchups they could expose. Boston say, you know what we have? Depth, length, and guess what? And I admitted this after game 2. I apologize. A pretty darn good coach in Joe Mazzulla. Listen, Joe looked in over his head last year, particularly against Eric Spoelstra, which, with all due respect, a lot of coaches look in over their head against Eric Spoelstra, who I believe to be the best coach in basketball. But he tweaked, he adjusted, he added to his staff. I remember me and John Rivera, shout out John, Fan Perspective Podcast. We seem to be the only people in the world who acknowledge the Sam Cassell hiring as an assistant with the Boston Celtics. It was like, whoa, nice move. Like, that's a darn good number 1 assistant to have in Boston. Joe Mazzulla got better. He improved. He adjusted. And the thing I give him a ton of credit on, aside from like 2 or 3 minute spurts, Boston's execution, particularly in the offensive end, was darn near flawless. They reminded me in a lot of ways of the 2014 San Antonio Spurs, where was the best player Duncan? Was it Kawhi Leonard? There's a Parker, there's Ginobili, we got some good pieces like a Boris Diaw, like a Marco Bellinelli. Like, we got some nice players around these, Patty Mills. No, I mean, we think we know who the best player on the team is, but it's not a consensus around the NBA. But God, do we play perfect offense? Man, do we play good team basketball playing within a set offense. And that's who the Celtics remind me of. 10 years ago, the Spurs did it in a very similar way that the Celtics did it, in a gentleman's sweep against a really, really good Mavs team and a really good Heat team 10 years ago. So shout out to the Boston Celtics, 2024 NBA champions, a very deserving champion. And for the moment, once again, the Celtics have the most NBA titles with 18. First team to get to 18 titles, followed by the Lakers at 17, and followed then, a distant third, I might add, but by my Golden State Warriors with 7 NBA titles. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.